What is going on, y'all? Joe Johnston here from Speaker Scale, and in this video, I'm going to be walking you through the template that you can use to build literally any system and process inside of your professional speaking business. This is the same template that we have helped our six-figure clients implement into their speaking businesses to scale to the high six-figure level and over seven-figure level with ease, peace, and team running these processes. Now, before we get started, if you want a copy of the SOPs framework that I'm going to be discussing in this video, go ahead and grab that in the resources section below. You can make a copy of that. This is by far probably the most important training that I have ever created. It is the most valuable one because it is the replicatable format and template that you can use to create literally any system and process inside of your speaking business, and that you can use to then start outsourcing those parts of your speaking business that you want to create that system and process around, so that you can free yourself up to be focused on the parts of your speaking business that only you can do, and so that you can scale easily to the next level. Now, before we go through this template and this overview, you first need to understand what a business system is and what it consists of. Now, a business system is not an automated machine or piece of technology or AI that you just turn on, and it prints for you hands off, right? A business system is defined as a group of interdependent tasks and elements that meet a specific business objective. Now, a thriving business running at its finest is one big massive system, and every respective macro and micro component inside of that business is a system. You have a marketing system, lead generation system, sales system, fulfillment system, finance, onboarding, hiring, firing systems, and much, much more. And in order to create a thriving speaking business that runs smoothly and efficiently, you need a framework that I'm going to give you here to build out systems for each of these respective components of your speaking business. Now, we also need to understand, which we're going to get into this in this video, that a business system is made up of four main key components and parts. There is the process, there is the people, there is the technology, and then there is the data, which gives you the insight into how that system is performing. Now, that's what we'll be walking you through today and giving you examples of and about, so that you can apply it to your own professional speaking business. So let me go through this. This is how to create any system inside of your business. I'm going to go through this high level, and then what I'm going to do is give like a very kind of base level example of like a lead gen process, or a process inside of the business that we could start to do this with. So as we break this down, right? So how to create any system inside of your business, you would put what part of the business that you want to outsource, and how it breaks down is we first have the process, right? So, what is the end to end process? And again, those interdependent tasks and elements that can be further broken down into SOPs, that comprise and make up this high level process and system, right? Off of that, with each of those interdependent major kind of tasks and milestones, there is a respective SOP. And again, I will give you access to, down in the resources section below, you'll be able to go make a copy of our SOPs framework. So there's an SOP that further breaks down that specific part and function of the overall process and system. The next is the owner of that respective task or function inside the business, right? So, for many of you, the owner is going to be you to start, but as you start plugging team members into place, and as you start getting more clarity on this and building out these SOPs and these frameworks, you're able to assign different owners and folks to this. And then the last piece is going to be the KPI, right? So the KPI is going to be the data piece, the number that is assigned to that respective task and element that you're going to use. And then, once you have this done, these sort of three parts, process, SOP, and owner, the owner is owning each of these parts within this high level process. And then you, as the business owner, are just looking at and reviewing the KPIs respectively, and leading and optimizing and directing and managing off of those KPIs. So let me go through this and give it a specific example here. All right, cool. So let's break down a process at a very, very high level. Let's do pre to post event. process, right? So this process, the pre to post event process, also known as the fulfillment process. Here, I'll just do a dash there, pre to post event slash fulfillment process. The reason I'm going to do this is because a lot of speakers we see don't have their pre to post event or fulfillment process really nailed down, right? So let me just kind of take it through. Your fulfillment process, your pre to post event process is essentially everything that happens once the sale is completed and the gig is closed won. So everything from, hey, please send us, let's move forward. Please send us your W-9. We want to move forward with, you as a speaker for $10,000 for our event in March or April, whatever. Looking forward to working with you, right? The client says that. Everything that happens from there all the way through the pre-event process, the event day, crushing it on event day, to the post-event process, and ultimately, hopefully, that client becoming a repeat client, us getting referrals, spin-off business, all that stuff. So step number one is we're going to say, so we get the verbal confirmation. We're going to say, send, I need to make these smaller, send paperwork plus, let's call it this, point of sale paperwork point of sale gig one. Cool. So point of sale gig one. Let's say that's the trigger point. So off of that, there's a million things that happen when, or not a million, but there's, whatever, 5 things that are going to happen once it is marked as gig one, right? So when it's gig one, it's like, okay, we send the paperwork email, we send the pre-event marketing email. Inside of the paperwork email is your W-9, the contract, request for the 50% deposit, all that good stuff. All of that is going to be laid out in the SOP. Like everything that happens at point of sale internally, marking this data and this gig as close one, setting up the pre-event call, everything is going to be documented in the SOP. So the main trigger event in the process is point of sale gig one. That's like the action step that kicks off this process to occur. Then the owner of this process, so you're going to map out what that SOP is. Like this very easily can and should be, if you're beyond 6 figures as a speaker, this very easily should be your executive assistant, right? Like you don't need to be handling this shit. So point of sale gig one, like what we do is there's a form that I fill out as kind of the lead sales agent and my professional speaking agent right now. I fill out, some numbers that marks it as one, all this stuff, marks it as how much it came in as, all this shit. But then I fill out a form that triggers my executive assistant and my team and my admin to follow the SOP, which is put the contract together, put the invoice together, and send that over to the client. And then she's responsible for it. KPI here, you could just put kind of like closed one. Like there's different KPIs you can put here. Not all of these things are going to have KPIs. You could put like close one. You could do something like time to receive 50% deposit. That's something we can optimize for in this process. But there's not too many KPIs here other than just, marking it as close one, and which is kind of part of the sales process. So we won't spend too much time there on the KPIs. But that's that. Okay. Point of sale, gig one, right? So the gig is one. We do the paperwork, all that shit. Next, we're going to put in here, before we even have the pre-event call, we're going to put like 50% deposit plus contract follow-up, right? So, that's going to be, the team following up and getting the 50% deposit in the contract. Again, a pain in the butt of, being in the spinky industry. Like you often have to follow up with people and make sure you have all that stuff, but it's part of the game, and that's going to be part of that process. So in between the gig one process and then your pre-event call, there's going to be this process here, which is like following up for the 50% to project, the contract, maybe like send marketing materials, marketing assets and all that shit. So that is part of the process. So SOP for that, again, this should be owned by the EA. And then again, we could have time to receive 50% deposit as your KPI for this. And again, not all of these processes are going to have KPIs. So time to receive 50% deposit. Pre-event call. So that's going to be owned by you as the speaker. This is your actual call with the meeting planner and team. Depending on whether you have a sales agent or not, you're probably going to have a lot of this information, but still, you should have a pre-event call. On the pre-event call, the reason we want to have it is because that's when you're going to also schedule your post-event call, which is very important. So we're going to have all that stuff. You don't really need to SOP that as well as like event day. I mean, you can SOP the pre-event call. As you scale, that is something you'd probably take yourself out of, but there's maybe not going to be too many things there. Maybe some final reminders for you that you can just SOP for yourself. No KPIs here on event day. Your KPIs are going to be things like success rate, especially if you have like something like Talkadot or something that's tracking success rate, spin-off inquiries, etc. Like a lot of the stuff there, and you can put some different places in place. Like, but this, you should have some KPIs here for your actual event of like what you're tracking for event success, and all that good stuff. Then you have the post-event call. Again, I would SOP this out. This is probably something that more you are going to hold on to for, a fairly long time as a speaker. And eventually you can have your sales rep or someone as you grow to that like $500,000 mark or further can take that over. But speaker on the post-event call, your KPIs for this are going to be like repeat biz percent, referrals received. Then you can put success rate in there again. So that is that. Again, guys, this is the pre to post event process. Obviously, a lot of these in this process are owned by the speaker. Actually, let me put one other piece in here, which is pretty crucial too. Which is going to be the post event flow. So there should be like a post event email and shit that you're sending or that your team is sending to wrap up the event. Some of our clients will have their team post event flow, have their team ask for, let me see, this can be EA / sales agent, testimonials received, referrals received. So this is where and then I would put time to receive final 50% if you didn't receive it on the front end. So this is where we're wrapping up the event. We'll do like a 30-day follow-up where we'll follow up and send some good information out there to like some value-driven information. But that's where the team, the EA, the sales agent is following up after the event. So that is how we would do it for the pre to post event, and fulfillment process. The biggest thing here, guys, is SOPing each of these pieces and then making the slow transition over to the team members. Like making the slow transition over to the team members, handing these duties over and saying, this part of the process, this task, this interdependent task in this greater process is now yours, right? And, this is the pre to post event and fulfillment process. You do this for like lead generation. All of this is not going to be owned by you. Like lead generation is the first thing where all of your green boxes and the owners here are not going to be you, right? Inside of the business. And your team is then just running lead gen and running that stuff. And you're literally just going off of the numbers and you have a data sheet to track that. You do this for sales eventually. That is something as well that as you grow to the $500,000 plus a mark, yearly mark as a speaker, that can be handled by your team. And then you're literally just going off of the data. But you have to, these two pieces, the yellow and green boxes, which is creating really solid SOPs, training documents, datatizing everything, processizing as everything, creating that recipe. And again, we have the SOP framework down below. Grab that in the resources section. And then handing this over to the team, having weekly check-ins with the team, having clear KPIs and numbers and data tracking sheets that you can use to track this is going to be the game. Like that is the biggest piece to getting free and to focusing on the things that you want to be focusing on inside of your speaking business, which is just speaking and creating content and building the brand. But this fucking training, following this process, go and grab the SOP framework and then become a leader and lead by the numbers and lead by the data is the key to getting there. So if you want to learn and you want help, like we have helped over 150 plus speakers to implement this as well as other predictable systems into their speaking businesses, you can go ahead and click the link below, speaker-scale.com, to book a call with our team and see if you're qualified to work with us. And yeah, go and grab the SOPs framework below so that you can start working through that and start creating these processes and these systems in the different aspects of your business: marketing, lead generation, sales, fulfillment, hiring, onboarding, all that shit, so you can start to build an actual, real, thriving speaking business that you're not doing everything inside of.